Good afternoon, everyone. I'll call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Ways and Means Committee together. I am the chair of the committee, Abdi Warsami, and today with me here are Council Members Johnson, Fletcher, and Council Vice President Jenkins. We are a quorum of the committee and can therefore conduct our business today. On the consent item today, we have 23 items for consideration, and I'll read them as follows. Item number 1 is a legal settlement, Hannah Northrup versus City of Minneapolis. Item number 2 is a legal settlement, Brandy Zaspel versus City of Minneapolis. Item number 3 is a contract amendment with Pioneer Power, Inc. for the Minneapolis Police Department's 2nd Precinct Air Handler Unit Replacement Project. Item number 4 is a contract amendment number 3 with Adolphson and Peterson Construction for the Eastside Storage and Maintenance Facility Project. Item number 5 is the second quarter 2019 donation report. Item number 6 is Integrated Mobility Innovation Demonstration Research Program Grant Letter of Support. Item number 7 is a grant application to Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development's Redevelopment Grant Program. Item number 8 is the 4D Affordable Housing Incentive Program Funds Transfer for Green Cost Share Program expenses. Item number 9 is a contract with Sumaya Hassan for the 2019 Blueprint Approved Institute. Item number 10 is a 2019 Urban Scholars Program funding from partner organizations. Item number 11 is a contract with John Gore Theatrical Group, Inc. for bomb detection at the Orpheum State and Pantanges Theater. Item number 12 is a contract with the University of Minnesota Veterinary Medical Center for Police K-9 Health Services. Item number 13 is a land sale, a vacated portion of right-of-way adjacent to 620 Olson Memorial Highway to North Loop Campus, LLC. Item number 14 is a contract amendment with Restoration and Construction Services, LLC for Fridley Softening Plant 2019 Masonry Project. Item number 15 is a grant from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency for electric vehicle charging stations. Item number 16 is a 10th Avenue Southeast River Bridge Rehabilitation Project, grant acceptance from the Minnesota Department of Transportation, agreements and appropriation. On item number 17 is a cooperative construction agreement with the Minnesota Department of Transportation for construction of stormwater storage facility. Item number 18 is an agreement with Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board for sidewalk construction in North Commons Park. Item number 19 is a bid for cleaning and lining of water mains. Item number 20 is a bid for large diameter sanitary sewer assessment. Item number 21 is a bid for cleaning of small diameter sanitary sewer system. Item number 22 is a bid for Ramp A expansion joint replacement project. Item number 23 is a bid for 11th and Marquette Ramp Phase 1 restoration project. And those are the 23 items on the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing no discussion, I'll move all items for approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against, and those items have been approved. Now we have one discussion item, item number 24, and this is the Hiawatha Maintenance Facility Campus Expansion, procurement and negotiations with local labor organizations for training and recruitment center, request for proposal for leasing of portion of Hiawatha training facility, and report on 2018 staff direction. And we have our CFO here, Mr. Mark Ruff, to give us an overview. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Mark Ruff, the Chief Financial Officer. Also sharing the podium with me today will be Robin Hutchinson, the City's Director of Public Works. Thank you all for this opportunity to offer an update on the Hiawatha campus expansion. If you recall, as a council, in December, a master plan was approved by the council, and there were also several staff directions that went along with this master plan. We are going to focus most of our time in this presentation today in the bottom left corner in the circle, which is the training and recruitment facility that I'm happy to report as the several months that have gone by since the December discussion, there is more enthusiasm for the need of this training and recruitment facility than even when it was conceived by many council members last year. This location and the adjacency to a major public works facility is a bright future, we feel like, for not only our workforce, but for training opportunities longer term, as well as trying to bring a connection with the neighborhood. And I know that Councilmember Cano has been very active in our discussions on this Hiawatha Advisory Committee, and one of her goals that she has expressed to us is that that training and recruitment facility and the community components not just be 8 hours a day, but try to bring life to the street as much as possible in the evening, and we have kept that in mind as we move forward with these different options. Today we're going to cover most of the staff directions. Some of the staff directions involve longer term endeavors, but we're going to cover these specific topics at a minimum. One update for you on the last piece is there was authorization in December to go forward with a request for proposals for construction manager services. We did undertake a search, and staff is recommending Kraus Anderson as the construction manager for this site, and that contract will be coming to council in the next couple of months. As was mentioned in the RCA and as on the city's website, for those who are not familiar with the location, the Public Works staff has done an excellent job with communications of updating the website for this project generally over the last couple of years. If you just do a search engine for Hiawatha Campus Expansion, City of Minneapolis, you will find a fair amount of information about this project. One piece of that information is a list of all of those entities that were invited and agreed to participate in the Hiawatha Advisory Committee. This was one of the major staff directions from council, was to talk to neighborhood groups, business groups, labor groups, those who may want to be involved in the training and recruitment community facility, come back to the council, specifically Ways and Means Committee, with results. As is not unanticipated, we don't have a vote from that committee that unilaterally or universally says, here's what we think is the best plan. What we have for you is a variety of perspectives and feedback, and we'll be sharing that. There were 4 meetings, but honestly, the most informative feedback came from small group discussions. We found that given the larger group committee format, and there were at least a dozen to 18 people at every one of these meetings, we found at the end of the day that the feedback that was most applicable was going and talking to groups of 2 or 3 people. And that conversation was primarily undertaken by a consultant that the city hired, Heidi Hamilton, who was here, as well as Terry Hallen from RSP Architect, who has been working on this project for a great deal of time, along with Lisa Cerny from Public Works, Deputy Director, and then Bob Friddle from our Property Services staff. So there were, again, I think healthy feedback that was gained from these smaller group discussions. I will talk through some of the results, but from our perspective, the Hiawatha Advisory Committee's group has, the feedback is sufficient such that that work of that committee is concluded. There will be other opportunities for community to participate in dimensions of this project, specifically around public art, and then a typical site design process that will be run like any development would be for the city of Minneapolis. One of the things that was done very well, I think, out of this Hiawatha Advisory Committee process was careful meeting notes were taken, and anyone can go on the website, review all of the perspectives that were offered at each one of the meetings. Overall, the scope of the Hiawatha Advisory Committee, we as staff and with the consultants talked about the master plan, more specifically about the building plan that was being proposed, identified some goals, talked about the different functional requirements of the different pieces of that facility, gathered the feedback on that, specifically related to the community, entrepreneurial, and retail components of that facility. We also did talk through with each of the committee members, because a continuation of the discussions all throughout last year is whether this whole building should be removed, or whether parts of the building should remain. And it is, I think, an understatement to say that many members of the community feel like a significant part or even a portion of this building should remain. I think our charge from council was to review as much as possible what's the best use of all of this site, given the long-term needs of Public Works, and trying to maximize really efficiencies within the site, on top of trying to combine a mass in a building that would have that activity level that Councilmember Cano gave us some charge to do as well. And so by concentrating that work, and I think one of the things that we want to emphasize is that we did look at different areas of the site for the training and recruitment facility to be located. It's at least staff's strong recommendation, and this comes from the design team as well, that this facility be located on the southwest portion of the site. We did look closer to the Greenway, and would there be advantages for being closer to the Greenway? Ultimately, it was decided to remain in the southwest part of the site. There is adequate parking. It enlivens one corner of the site, and gives some separate entrances and exits for that site that is not impeded either by the Public Works operation or vice versa. Specifically, we did walk through with the committee different floor plans, and we want to share with you some of the floor plans that are in front of the committee and the feedback that we received. There were two different options for looking at one component on the first floor, as I said, this activation, and that was the retail portion in the orange. I'll just orient you to this building. Again, we are up is north, and so on the bottom here is 28th. So the site itself is much larger, obviously, than this building, but we have just focused on this particular floor plate. On the right side, in the brownish, is the training facility, sometimes we refer to as the sandbox. It would be the area where Public Works employees, we also invited as a part of the Hiawatha Advisory Committee, the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority, as well as the Minneapolis Parks and Recreation Board representatives, to expand the area where training opportunities may exist within governmental entities. We also included CPED staff who were involved in training and recruitment as well. I'm sorry, within employment as well. So the far right side would be the sandbox. The purplish color would be the support for the training facilities, storage, tools, more smaller hands-on spaces as well. So the two options in terms of the retail that were reviewed would be all on the far western side, or more activation along 28th. And the feedback generally that we received from the committee was that option one, by having the retail adjacent spaces, having it potential for expansion or changes in size as the use of the retail changed potentially over time, would be the preferred area. There would also be some of that space that's in the checkerboard grid that potentially has some outdoor activation as well. So that was one of the components of the Hiawatha Advisory Committee findings that we can bring back to you. The second area is the second floor plan, and because that sandbox area does take up 2 floors, we're not showing anything on the right side because that would be a larger, higher ceiling space. But was mentioned in December, some of the other uses that would be explored would be classroom for a community where people could come in and use the facility. Councilor.
There's a question from Council Vice President Jenkins, but I also want to note that Council Member Palmisano joined us as well. So, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Warsame and Mr. Ruff. I am curious, can you go back to the slide on the first floor plan? And so in that whole kind of patio area and the entry, you stated that's 28th Street? Sort of this entry.
Sure, that runs along the bottom of this slide is 28th. That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So to Council Member Connell's point around activating that space, I think we as a city and as we are thinking about this project, how do we create more safety and I think green space to really address some of the concerns that I know residents have been bringing about related to air quality, as well as I've been hearing a lot of public safety concerns in that general area because it's sort of less frequented. I mean, I know it's the Greenway, but the bikes are just kind of moving through. But how can we use this project to create more safety and more visibility for people beyond the time that the facility is going to be in use?
Mr. Chair, Council Vice President, I think you are asking a very good question. It's probably a larger question than what a single facility can provide. I would suggest that in one area that I know we can ask Robin Hutchinson to talk about is one of the benefits of having Public Works on the site in an expanded fashion is we can ask Public Works to do things above and beyond what we would ask a business to do. Mm-hmm. So if we talk about, for example, staffing needs, if some of the concern is traffic, then Public Works would be able to add staffing to make sure that there's safe entry and exit out of this at appropriate times during the day is just an example. That's not necessarily something that's planned. I would say the other is, as much as possible, using this facility to do what we can to serve as a draw, not just for the neighborhoods, but the people working in the facility, so that they will utilize this not just for the training, but also potentially for the retail facility as well. And so I think the standard for the city generally is that when there are more people on the street, it is usually a safer environment. And so that would be one of the goals that we would see for the site. And again, not just from a 7 to 4 kind of typical public works hours, but as much as possible into the 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the evening. And so I think that is one area. The other that we heard from the committee, and your question dovetails well into some of the feedback in the committee, which is the charge from many of the committee members is design this facility flexibly. Right? Don't become so specialized that the uses are too narrow for the adjustments over time. And I think we had helpful perspectives from those folks who were involved in Midtown Global Market, for example. That we had perspective from people who were actually operating retail facilities, that we had perspective from some community groups that said don't compete with some of the other uses that are happening that are community uses in the area. Find the target market for this particular facility. So if that helps answer your question, I'm not sure it was adequate, but at least an attempt.
No, it was very adequate in that I was merely trying to really bluster Council Member Connell's concerns and really, try to get us, and I know we can't design this whole facility here at the dais, but really to help us think about how we have this broader community vision than just around that facility. So you did answer my question. Thank you very much.
So as I mentioned, on the second floor plan, we are limited to this just...
Mr. Ruff, I think Councilmember Johnson has a question as well.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. Both on this slide and the previous slide, I see the men's and women's rooms. Are those bathrooms or are those changing rooms? And then is that just what the architects put on there, or will they be gender neutral?
Sure, Mr. Chair, Councilmember Johnson, thank you for the question. Yes, those are restrooms, and yes, we would follow the city's direction of having gender-neutral restrooms also available in this facility. I think right now we're more at just a very large block kind of uses rather than refining exactly what the square footages of the restrooms would be, but your comment is well taken.
Great, thank you.
So the classroom space on the second floor is another area where we see exciting opportunities for multi-purpose use. We did have our election staff involved and said that the second floor space could work for our early vote center, which traditionally this location has been very popular for an early vote center. We also do see the opportunity again for some flexible space in the classroom that could be used for both training and, as I said, for community partnerships for where that need is identified. That is the area on the purple on the left side would be those training specific areas, and then the area in the orange would be the classroom sizes as well. And again, the restrooms in the gray, and then the gray upper right would be support for the training facility to actually be some storage that would be accessible from that right side of the sandbox. We also did explore third floor options, and this is the idea of entrepreneurial space. And quite honestly, it's a opportunity for some larger space that could be used by a group or several groups. Some of the committee did come forward and say some kind of co-working space. I think it was universally viewed that this obviously needs to be lower cost space, but it was this type of space that was at least contemplated in lieu of keeping a portion of the building. And certainly the economics are in a different place with new construction, but at the same time, by stacking uses, it's more consistent with a city emphasis with density for these types of uses. And so there really would be just the opportunity for just, again, the western side of the building or completely over to the far right as one of those uses of the space. I think this slide is nothing more than just informational. We're not going to dwell on the costs other than to give you a sense of, with these different square footages, what some of the increased cost above the baseline training facility would be. And the three different options, one is the base cost of the training and recruitment center. The other would be additional retail, which would be about 2,000 square feet, again, on that west side. We also looked then at the second floor. And then the third floor is as the partial, about 7,500 square feet, and the full third floor at almost an additional 13,000 square feet. We're here to say to the council and this committee specifically that no decisions on the size of the facility are necessary today. We do have a design process that's still underway. We, I think, are in the place that, given the feedback from the committee and some of that discussion about who's actually going to run the space, how flexible can we have the space, one of the recommendations in the request for council action is to go out for a request for proposals for what I would describe almost like a master leaseholder for this space. But again, just a forecast for the council is one of the key policy decisions would be how much are we going to charge in rent if we were to undertake that work? And would we want to just charge for operating cost and cover the capital cost as a city? Would we want to have varying charges depending on what the uses are? And I think for us, the committee was very helpful in expanding the horizon of opportunities from a staff perspective. And I think a part of a continuation of that expansion of the horizons would be to hear directly from people who would step up, say, I want to be responsible for this space. I can bring other community partners in. And here's what I think the economics and the size and the configuration should be within the parameters of this footprint that we have outlined today. So that is one of the actions that we're asking you all to take today, is to just gather more in-depth feedback from an operator, somebody who is experienced working in the city, in community facilities, in conjunction with a multi-use type of facility. That refinement of the design is part will help then inform future council decisions on the overall project cost for this facility. So I just want to say in summary, again, on the Hiawatha Advisory Committee, want to highlight the fact that there was great differences of opinion about what the future of this facility should be. There are many community members who feel like the city council should revisit again this use overall of the facility, that most of the discussion that we had was a continuation of approximately 2 acres of this plus some parking, which gets closer to 3 acres, which has been a consistent theme that we've heard from individuals in the community for a number of years. I think we also heard from many community members that urged some caution, and when I say community members and committee members, some caution for the city to make sure that we design a facility that can be used longer term and flexibly, as well as affordably. And I think the idea that we build a facility and somehow charge $20 a square foot in rent, we all know that we can't live in that world in this type of facility. And so it will take some underwriting of costs from the city over a period of time in order to have those larger scopes available. But I also think it's unfair to come to the council without a more cohesive vision on what the use of the space can be, and that's the reason for the RFP process, is to bring that cohesive vision to you. I also want to thank Councilmember Cano. She's been very good about guiding this process. She was very instrumental in choosing the variety of perspectives that came from the Hiawatha Advisory Committee, and I feel like we're going to have a better project because of that. If we can then, Mr. Chair, I'd also like to move on just to a report on some of the other components of the staff direction, if that's okay with you. Good news is Mary Altman can't be here today from CPED. As many of you know, she's the public art director for the city. The Hiawatha facility was given and awarded from the Public Art Advisory Panel, an independent group, $212,000 for this facility. That comes from the 1.5% of all of the bonds that we sell that goes directly to public art according to a council ordinance. There will be a community-based art steering committee formed. Mary will be responsible for that, working with the ward council member. As I mentioned earlier, we will also then have feedback that we'll be receiving from as the architectural plans further mature in terms of landscaping, fencing, and buffers. We are continuing to work on I think the understanding we had that the 100% of the rooftops that were available would have solar, and that we'd be working towards a solar garden on this facility that would be available for subscriptions from people in the immediate area and the city at large. The economics on solar gardens are changing, but this is continuing to be our plan. And then the city has been working with the Sustainability Office to ensure some funding for city facilities that have solar on the tops. Urban agriculture, David Frank is here to answer any specific questions on this, but CPED staff has met on an urban agriculture pilot with EPNI. Again, I think the offer from CPED staff has been looking at a variety of facilities, not this specific location, but nearby as much as possible. And again, questions on that can be directed to David. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Robin Hutchinson for more detail on a couple of components specific to Public Works.
Councilmember Warsami.
Good afternoon, Chair Warsami, members of the Ways and Means Committee. I'm going to present on a few items that are related to really 2 staff directions, and then a bit more information on a 3rd item. The first is a staff direction that we consider Complete Streets and Vision Zero for the surrounding streets around this project. I'm happy to report that we have completed a preliminary review of conditions of the opportunities to enhance safety. We're primarily focusing on walking and biking, as we understand those to be the primary concerns of the surrounding community. Right now, we have a very early list of potential projects that we are checking against our operational budgets and plans, as well as our capital plans, as well as integrating it into the site plans. We plan to refine this work through the rest of 2019 and begin building it into our programming in 2020, along with the refinements of the site plan. Vision Zero is the city's effort to eliminate death and serious injury on our roadways over the next 10 years. All of our work on this site will dovetail very nicely with the Vision Zero action plan that we'll be bringing forward to you later this year. It's here where I would also like to address the question from Council Vice President Jenkins on some of the safety and activity. The first thing that came to mind was the principles of CEPTED that we employ on many of our street projects. That's crime prevention through environmental design. And the first thing I think of is a way to appropriately light this area, which would be part of the project, and to landscape the area to make it welcoming, and then of course making it a all hours type of, or extended hours type of activity place, all of those things coming together to create a CEPTED approach to the project. The next staff direction that I'll report back on is a specific recruitment plan for the site. If you recall, we had a direction to focus our efforts on a 3-mile radius. I'm going to provide just a short report back that when we went to do that work and we drew that 3-mile radius, it was almost the entire city minus North Minneapolis. We checked in with Councilmember Cano on this, and we agreed on a strategy that would be a few tiers of recruitment, one that would be citywide. These are good jobs for many in our city. And then a much more focused effort in the immediately surrounding neighborhoods to the facility. I've met with Patience Ferguson, our Director of Human Resources. We have committed to working together on this plan. Over a few meetings that we've had, we have decided that we will start with our public works recruitment efforts that we have today. Last year, we did over 20 events led by Monique Fish. I cannot say enough about her amazing work. We want to build upon that, and we want to do that by working together with the neighborhood and with neighborhood organizations. We need to reach a little deeper than what we reach today. Again, additional development of this through the rest of 2019 and into 2020 so that we can really ramp up again for 2021 when we're really in high recruitment mode. And I'm really looking forward to working together with HR on this. The last item I'm going to give you an update on is about the training portion of the facility. We have been working, I would say, in an enthusiastic partnership so far with several of our local unions, our labor organizations. I want to recognize that Tony Kelly is here with us today from LiUNA 363, Local 363. We are continuing to have really good discussions, and there is high interest in working together. We are seeking authorization to begin a negotiation process with local labor organizations. It's time for us to be more specific about what the needs are and how that lays out in the space, and to determine roles and responsibilities. I want to close my portion of the presentation in just recognizing the work of Lisa Cerny. Lisa's here. She's sitting with us today. She's provided tremendous leadership on this project. She has been at every single meeting, and she has guided so many of our decisions and conversations. So a big shout out to Lisa for her work on this project. I can stand for any questions or turn it back to Mark as necessary.
Thank you very much. Any questions from my colleagues?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
All right. Seeing none, okay. First of all, I want to thank Councilmember Cano for her leadership on this.
Councilmember Warsame, there's some really important
So
information.
we're not having a public hearing. This is just
I
a discussion.
understand, but respect.
I would like to just add a little bit of information.
Well,
that you
this is not a public hearing. You can provide the information to me personally after the event, but this is not a public hearing, sir. Sir, this is not a public hearing. I repeat again, sir, this is not a public hearing. Let's have respect for the process. This is not a public hearing. We are having a presentation from staff, and that's what we're here to do. So thank you.
Mr. Ruff gave
Stop.
you some information.
Sir, you could, if you have any information, you can give it to the clerk. I can talk to you after the meeting, but right now we are having a discussion. Let's complete our discussion, and we can have a meeting afterwards. But please,
You're
please.
receiving a report from staff
I am again,
incorrect, and you're going to make a decision based on incorrect information.
sir, with all due respect, this is not a public hearing.
Request 5 minutes.
No, sir, this is not a public hearing. You can have 5 minutes of my time after we finish, but right now, this is not.
Is this the new standard for Minneapolis? No.
This is the standard, sir.
From neighborhood? Is that really?
I wasn't that by the committee.
Again, I can, me and my colleagues can speak to you after the meeting, but we have to continue our meeting, sir.
Phillips organization
Again,
present their plan. The staff handpicked private meetings. What you received today is a staff report.
sir, you can speak to me, we will speak to you after the meeting, but let's continue with our discussion.
I would like to talk to the Ways and Means
You can talk to us after the meeting.
Minneapolis City Council.
Would you guys wait?
We will. After the meeting, we can talk to you.
I'm here.
My colleagues have said they are willing. We are the Ways and Means Committee. We're having a discussion. Let's complete our discussion, sir.
I would like to participate in that discussion, sir.
Well, there's no room for public hearing right now. So let's.
So you're going to vote on
Again,
on delivering this to the full city council without hearing
this is not a
full
this is,
information about what happened in the Hiawatha Advisory Committee. Is that your position, sir?
we are going to complete our discussion and our meeting.
Columnist for South- And I will be writing an article.
Article under one you will write after this. So let's continue with our discussion. Go ahead, Mr. Ruff.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I think I am at the end of the presentation. I mentioned earlier the second action, in addition to what Robin highlighted, to gather more information, is to authorize staff to issue a request for proposals for leasing services for the non-municipal space. We're excited about this opportunity to bring this dimension to the project. Again, as the voices here indicate, this is a difficult project. We appreciate the council's direction, and certainly we'll be back to you again further as we move along in the construction and the various bids, as well as the results for the request for proposals. But the two action items are the ones in front of the council at this time, which are the issuance of the request for proposals.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ruff. And I would like to personally thank Councilmember Cano for her leadership on this. You know, it's been a very difficult discussion we've been having, but also the time and effort that our city staff have put into this. Mr. Mark Ruff, Robin Hutchinson, David Frank, Lisa Cerny, and many more individuals have put a lot of work in this, so we really appreciate your dedication. And I'm very excited about the training center, the fact that this area in Ward 9, which is adjacent to Ward 6, has some of the largest unemployment and largest disparities in the whole state of Minnesota. And having a training center that young people from these communities could work for Hennepin County, other metro area counties, as well as the city of Minneapolis is very exciting, and I'm very supportive of it. And this is the beginning of the discussion. And I think having this discussion is going to be difficult, but we are in the right step. So unless there's any further discussion, I move approval of item number 24. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against? That item has been approved. And since we have no further discussion on our thing, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.